Plot twist. The killer doesn't always pull up looking like the villain. Doesn't show up looking like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ed Gein. Sometimes it shows up smiling, holding your hand, sounding like self-care, but really, sabotage in disguise. The killer is smart. It doesn't always come kicking down your door screaming you're a failure. That's too obvious. You'd figure that out. Instead, it slides in soft. It borrows the voice of reason. It pretends to care about you. It whispers, don't push yourself. You need a rest. Hold off on that idea. You don't want to put that idea out until it's absolutely perfect. Or, to give you a nice shrug and say, you'll do it tomorrow, don't rush. And on the surface, those things sound gentle. They sound like self-care. They sound like protection. But here's the truth. 9 times out of 10, that's not care. It's fear dressed up in your mama's voice. That's avoidance cosplaying as self-love. The killer's disguise is the sweet excuse you let yourself believe because it feels safer than doing the thing. Safer than being seen. Safer than risking messy progress. That's how it hides in plain sight. And the most dangerous killers are always the ones smiling at you while they're holding the knife. And the fuckery of it all? The killer knows you better than you know yourself. It knows your weak spots. It knows your soft spots. It knows your triggers. It knows the exact tone that'll make you shrink. It knows the thought that will stop you cold. It knows the memory that still burns, even when you swear that you've healed from it. The killer studies you. It's got a front row seat to every time you've ever doubted yourself, every time you've ever said, I'll do it later, every time you've ever convinced yourself that small was safe. So when it talks to you, it doesn't come in swinging, it comes in sweet. It knows the perfect thing to say, to make you pause, and it'll wrap it up in a bow and call it self-care. It'll say, you've been through a lot, take a break. And yeah, that sounds nice until the break turns into a pattern. You're not resting, you're retreating. It'll say, don't post that yet, it's not ready. And you'll tell yourself you're just being intentional. But you're not protecting your peace, you're protecting your fear of being seen. It'll say you can do it tomorrow, and you'll sigh with relief thinking you've given yourself grace, but it's not grace, it's delay dressed up like peace. That's the killer's real power. It knows your personal password. It speaks your language so well, you start confusing comfort with truth. Meanwhile, it locks you up in a cage, clips your wings, and gaslights you into thinking that you chose freedom. And that's why it's so dangerous, because it's not out here attacking you, it's agreeing with you. It's co-signing your comfort. It's sitting next to you saying, you're doing great, while dreams are sitting in the corner collecting dust. So the flip isn't just about noticing the killer's voice. It's about calling out the intent. When it starts sounding like love, like logic, like you're on cue, that's when you say, nah, I see you. And you move anyway. Messy, nervous, imperfect. Okay, so here's where we bring it back down to earth. Because the reality is, awareness without movement is just another disguise. You can't think your way out of a cage. You've actually got to start rattling some bars. And the killer wants you frozen in reflection. It loves when you journal about change and it loves when you plan the plan and color code the planner and get the fancy pens and you call that progress. This is where you break the pattern. You move anyway, anyhow. And if that voice says you don't have the time, you carve out 5 minutes and you start. It says you're too tired, you stand up, you stretch, you prove that you can still move. It says don't post it, you hit upload, and you close the app before fear has the chance to refresh the page. Every single micro move is a brick, and bricks don't look like much until you start stacking them. One text, one email, one walk, one boundary at a time. And that's how you build proof. That's how you build self-trust. You don't have to fix your whole life this week. You just take one action that the killer doesn't approve of. That's your rebellion. That's your receipt. Because confidence, unfortunately, is not built in the mirror. It's built in motion. Peace isn't found by sitting still. It's found by moving through the noise and realizing that you didn't die. So move. Move anyway. Move scared, move messy, move as loud as possible, but move. Because the killer can't survive in motion. It thrives in hesitation, not momentum. And once you start stacking those bricks, you realize you were never trapped. You were just waiting to remember your power. And that's the thing about growth. It doesn't knock. One day, you just catch yourself doing something that you used to talk yourself out of. And you're like, hold on a second. Wait a damn minute. Stops you dead cold in your tracks. Like, I didn't hesitate. I didn't freeze. I just did it. That's the moment right there. When you realize the killer didn't leave, you just stopped listening. You stopped waiting for fear to quiet down before you moved. You got up mid-sentence and you kept going. And that's when everything starts to shift. You're not surviving anymore. You're steering. You're not waiting for motivation. You're making momentum look easy. You start noticing the difference. You're not negotiating with your boundaries. You're enforcing them. You're not journaling about peace. You're living it. You're not performing confidence. You are confidence. Even when your voice shakes. Every move you make is proof. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-trust gets louder. That voice that used to stop you is still there, but now it sounds like background noise. And that's the part that nobody really tells you. You don't have to feel ready to become ready. You build readiness one messy action at a time. One messy action at a time. You keep stacking the evidence until the confidence has no choice but to catch up. Because suddenly, you're not manifesting the version of who gets it done. You are that version. You're them now. Not because life finally somehow got easier, but because you stopped giving the killer the auxiliary cord. Now, you rest different. You move different. You don't need validation to know your worth. You don't wait for permission. You announce yourself. And when the killer whispers you can't, you roll your eyes, babe, I already did. When it says you're not ready, neither was I the last time, and look how that turned out. That's identity. That's ownership. That's the real flip. Not perfection, not pretending, just proof. Unfortunately, no one ever taught us that there are different voices living in our heads, different narrators fighting for the mic. We grew up thinking that there was only one voice, and because it sounded like us, we assumed that it was telling us the truth and, of course, had our best interest in heart. Nobody pulled us to the side and said, hey, that voice that sounds a lot like you sometimes lies. So we spend years letting fear dress up as logic and calling it maturity. We let hesitation call it self-protection, and we believe it because no one told us that we had other options. And that's how the killer slid in unnoticed. Talking like authority, sounding like reason, pretending it was the only responsible one in the room. When the reality is that fear, it just learned how to mimic your voice. The killer never had control. You did. It just talked louder. Louder than your self-worth, louder than your truth, louder than the parts of you that knew that you had it in you, but was too scared to show it. And that's how the killer wins. Counting on your imposter syndrome to clock in right on time. Every damn time. When you start to rise to the occasion, it slides in louder than anything else in the room. Louder than your wins, louder than your work, louder than the receipts that you have already to prove that you belong there. It doesn't even need to be right. It just needs to drown out the part of you that knows better. But that ends here. You finally see it for what it is. The voice never had your compass. It was the cage trying to talk you out of flying. Now you move different. You think different. You catch yourself mid-pattern and you say, hold up, that used to work on me, but not anymore. And that's power. That's awareness. That's the version of you that's been waiting to show up this whole entire time. You're not waiting for the perfect time. You make it perfect when you show up. You're not begging for confidence. You're building it in real time. And you're not trying to silence the killer anymore. You're starving it with progress. Every single action you take is proof. Every step forward steals its breath. It can't survive in momentum. I've said that. So this is where the flip gets real. Not in your head, but in your habits. Stop trying to feel ready. Start moving like you already are. Because readiness isn't a mood, it's a muscle. And baby, you've been training for this. I really want you to pay attention this week to how the killer dresses up as support. Okay? Every time you hear that voice say something like, you deserve a break, or don't overdo it, or this isn't the right time, or it's not perfect, ask yourself, is this comfort or is this a costume? If it's comfort, it will recharge you. But if it's a costume, it will keep you stuck. So your challenge, once a day, write down a moment where support turned out to be sabotage. Whether it came from your own head or out of somebody else's mouth, take one action that represents real support instead. Something small but honest. Rest when you need to, not when you're hiding. Speak up when it's uncomfortable, not when it's safe. That's when you start retraining your ear to hear the truth. Now, let's call out the disguise together. Drop in the comments, the killer tried to sound supportive when it said blank. Real support sounds like blank. Let's flood this entire feed with examples of what false support looks like so nobody else in our community falls for it again. Because when we expose the costume, we make it impossible for the killer to be able to hide behind kindness. I love you guys. Have a great week.